Hi, welcome. Alex here from Health Leaders Academy, and welcome to October's coaching call here in 2014. And it's my very, very great pleasure to be joining you live today from a not so very sunny Canberra. In fact, it's to be honest, it's freezing here today. I think it's 7 degrees at around lunchtime, and it's been cold and wet and windy. Most unpleasant, but good day to be inside, good day to be on a webinar, a good day to be giving some good information and coaching to you as part of our awesome coaching program. And also congratulations for being part of Team Alex. It's as I said, it's my very great pleasure to be on this journey with you. So there are two things I'd like to do today. The first one is I've put aside this time for, or this coaching call for a Q&A session. I've got a number of questions that I want to answer for people today, specific to their business, but those answers will benefit everybody. And the second thing I'd like to do is start to walk through an email campaign that you could consider running in your own practice. And it's something we've been doing. We're running it for the second time this week, and still seeing how that is panning out. But it's a really good way of generating some income, some sales, and also reinvesting in existing patients. So if you've got someone on a database or an email list, then this is a really good way of getting them back up to speed, or getting them re-engaged, reactivated within your practice. And I think for most of us, we have, a list of, ranging from new practice to a few hundred to practices who've been around for a number of years. Maybe you've got thousands of people on your list. I know that there are probably 6,000 people on our database. Not all of them are on our email list, but that's a group of people that we can potentially connect or reconnect with in a meaningful way. So that's something we're going to talk a bit about today as well. If during the course of this call you come up with some questions, please put them up live. I can see everybody is here, and it's time to make a start. I'm just making for myself some oolong tea. Let that brew. Keep my voice lubricated, hopefully. And let's start. Just before I do, it's worth just asking, how is the sound quality? How's the image? Can you see and hear everything clearly? If you could just raise your hand and let me know, that would be very helpful. Okay, so what I'm going to do is jump straight into some questions for today. Let me just go to my list of questions. Okay, so we'll start working through these. Here's a couple of questions that have come in from Sylvie. The question is, do we register different business names, or do we have to register different business names when you create different brands or brand things differently, even though they are just different niches of the same business? It's a really good question. It's it has a straightforward answer, and it has a slightly less straightforward answer. I think the first thing I would do in terms of business names is the register of business names is potentially different in each state and territory. So it's worth going to your local government, state and territory government, and just seeing what the restrictions and the registrations are, and what's necessary in terms of registering a business name. And it really comes down to ultimately what kind of structure you're going to have in your practice. And for example, if you're operating as a sole trader, then you can get away just by using your own name and not actually registering a business name at all. Now, I should preface all of this by saying that I'm not a lawyer. I'm not part of your counsel. I do not know if this is accurate advice but it's a bit of a guideline. But I would definitely follow up with your local authority to make sure that what I'm telling you is accurate. But in general, as a sole trader, you can trade under your own name. So I could trade as Alex Perry, but that's not a really great business name. If I want to register a business name as a sole trader, then I would go and do that. And I suggest you pick one trading name, and your niches, if you like, or your marketing message, or your catchphrases and catch lines can be different from your business name. But everything in terms of the structure of the practice and the structure of the business for tax purposes and where your income goes should all go into that single name. So, for example, if I'm the Blue Sky Chinese Medicine Clinic, as we have been for many years since we started, then that's our trading name. That's the registered business name, and everything goes through that. So if I then talk about the fertility factor or solving the fertility puzzle, they're not separate businesses. They're just niche markets and marketing messages, if you like. So that's what I would suggest you do. Have a single business name, a single entity, and then use those other terminologies, if you like, to demonstrate or explain or market to your particular niche. So I hope that goes some way to answering the question. It gets more complicated the more complicated your business structure becomes. So in terms of business structures, again, the person to talk to about how to structure your business is actually your accountant. So I'll throw a question back at everybody. Do you have an account? Do you have an accountant? And B, is that accountant a good accountant? They're not always easy to tell, but you should have an accountant, and you should say to that accountant, here's my position, here's my practice, here's my business. This is where I want to take my practice. What's the best structure to allow me to do that? And it could be a sole, you might continue, or you might operate as a sole trader, or you might register a company, or you might have a system where you use a trust mechanism. And each of those three methods or structures for your business have different pros and cons. Some of them have greater cost, but have more flexibility, and so on and so forth. So again, don't take my advice on this as absolute. I'm not qualified to guide you specifically here, other than to say these are some of your options, and you should go and speak to your accountant or whoever is authorised to actually go through that registration process in your state and territory. But as a rule of thumb, I would pick your business name as the thing you register, and then think of your niches or your niche markets as pieces of marketing material rather than individual businesses themselves. Then all of the money in and out goes through that single entity. So I hope that answers the question. It's a really good one, and particularly if you're starting out, it's often hard to know where to go with these things. All right, let's move on to the next question. Second question. I'm thinking of doing a car magnet ad for my car. Where do you recommend placing it? On the back, on which side? And would you do it more like a business card without a photo than a print ad, or keep it really bold and sparse? It's a really interesting question, and I know the question is very specific to placing an ad on a motor vehicle, or a signage on a motor vehicle, but the advice I'll give you in terms of creating signage is it really doesn't matter where you're going to put it. It should have the same elements to it. And one of the things that is really tempting on any sign is to put too much information on it, to jam it full of content and facts and figures and data and phone numbers and websites and bullet points, and try and list everything you do in one hit. And it's a bad idea, because someone's going to look at an ad like that and they're going to basically freak out and not read the information. And a good exercise to do is, if you happen to have a real Yellow Pages, flick through it, have a look at the majority of the ads. Okay, or pick any page, doesn't matter what industry or market it is. and have a look at which ads stand out and which ads don't. And often the ones that stand out have lots of space around them, and the ones that don't blend in often have too much, arguably too much information crammed into them. So get your message really clear. And you've got to be careful, because the size of your ad, the bigger your ad, the more tempting it is to fill it with information. The smaller the ad, you've got to be much more concise, but it's still tempting to put a lot of information in it. And there was an example actually on the Facebook group. It wasn't one of Team Alex's members, but one of the other coaching students put an example of an advertisement up. And my comment was very simply, it's too cluttered. It's unclear. I don't know what you want me to, I don't know what you're offering, and I don't know what you want me to do. I don't have a call to action. It's just not clear. So I would go back to your elevator pitch. I would go back to your business name. I'd go back to message, and I'd go back to, what's the aim of this ad? Okay, what do you want them to do? And if it's on the side of a car, maybe it's got a slightly different purpose than, if it's on the side of the building or inside your practice. But you've got to think, why am I running this ad? So the question is, if you're going to put a magnet on your car, why are you going to do that? And it's a perfectly good, reasonable thing to do, but why are you doing it? Is it just to build brand? Because if it's building brand, it's one car. Look, no one, there's not going to be enough eyes on it to really do any brand building. So I suggest that if you're going to have an ad on a car that's driving around, that you should say very clearly what you want someone to do. So a call to action is really important. So in this case, I'm not sure that the name of the business is even that important, but what are you trying to tell the person looking at your car? For example, I use my own practice, fertility. If I was going to put a magnet on the side of my car, I want to think about, what do I want someone to do? And there's a couple of options. I could get them to call the phone number, but a phone number is really hard to remember when you're driving along, unless you're a passenger and you can type it into your phone. So a call to action where want someone to call from a car ad is probably not a great idea. Visit a website. Yeah, absolutely. If you've got a really, if your domain is easy to remember, then, get them to visit the website. So for me, it might be, the call to action is visit theperrycentre.com.au. Okay, so they've only got to remember the Perry Centre, and then they can come and find me. That's what you want them to do. And then you've got to give them a reason to do it. Okay, so what is the Perry Centre? Well, in the body of your advertisement might say something like, are you considering a natural approach to fertility? ? Okay. And that's really clear, it's short, it's concise. And the person who reads that and it resonates with them, they're going to think, oh, what do I do now? So step 2 would be, now that you've got their attention, give them a solution, okay? Or give them a thing that is going to convince them to visit, do the next part, which is visit the website. So you're considering a natural approach to fertility, visit the website, or visit my website, or visit theperrycentre.com.au to get your free report, your free whatever it happens to be. So I think in terms of your ad, it should have those components. It should say, what's the burning question? What's the thing that this person is asking? What do they want? And that's a very specific one. And then give them a reason to take the action, and then tell them what that action is. So are you interested in a natural approach to fertility? Visit theperrycentre.com.au to receive or to download your free case study or whatever it happens to be. And so it's really, really crystal clear. And as part of your graphics, I would include your face, or at least an image that portrays the nature of your business. I think, I'm a fan of putting our own image on our practices, because, people really like to know who they're going to be dealing with. Why would I call this person? Oh, well, this person looks credible, looks legitimate. It's a real person. And you can do all sorts of funky things. You could have an arrow on the sign that points to the driver's window, and there you are, This is, specific for a car ad. That'd be kind of funny. You want something that grabs someone's attention. Okay, so question, solution, call to action. In terms of where you put an ad for a car, look, I think that's if you've got a magnet, really you can try it. Put it on your side, put it on the passenger side, put it on the front, put it on the back, put it on the bonnet, put it on the roof. Try it in numerous places, and or get several of them made and have them all over your car. I think if your car becomes a mobile billboard with your message on it, then that would be a good thing. The other way to do it would be to have a couple of signs on a side. So if you've got a four-door car, and I'm thinking this out loud, but if you had a four-door car, you could have a sign on the front door that poses your question with an image. So picture of a baby. Have you considered a natural approach to fertility? And then maybe that sort of moves through to the second magnet, which is the solution and the call to action. So there are lots and lots of ways to do it, but the message is way more important than where you put it, where you position it on your car. The only thing I'd say about that is make sure it's super clear, that your text is very readable, and that it's readable as someone's driving past. Okay, so if someone's driving past or sitting behind you, you want them to be really clear about, are you talking to them or someone they know? And if so, why would they take the action that you're asking them to do? Okay, so I hope that makes sense. And guys, apply that to all your advertising. Even when we're sending an email, and we're going to talk about this in a little while, but when you're sending an email to a list, you want to make sure that it's really clear what the email is about. Give them a reason to open it in the subject line. Give them a reason to read it in the headline. Give something to do at the end so they're not left hanging. It'll give you a much better response. And that idea of and this is sort of taking it one step further, this idea of a CTA, a call to action, is perhaps the most critical part of all your advertising, because it's one thing to build brand, but brand is useless unless you've got a call to action. And a call to action is simply saying, well, now that you're engaged, now that we're having a conversation, this is what if this resonates with you, this is what I'd like you to do next. Okay, take that action. And I can tell you from experience, and this is a really good example, running a live seminar. Okay, and I used to do a lot of live events, and you might have 15, 20, 30, 40 people in a room. And the way that I would do it originally was to give an hour of content, essentially an hour of content, or 40 minutes of content, and then 20 minutes of answering questions. And that's great, but then you'd leave it there. So these people are kind of ready and waiting and engaged, and then you just leave them hanging. And if you had 20 people in a room, if you might convert 5 or 10% of those tops to, would actually have the guts, if you like, to come up afterwards and ask you questions and perhaps make an appointment. When you add a simple call to action that takes that 5 to 10% conversion rate and puts it up around the 30, 40, and sometimes 50% mark, and sometimes higher, by simply giving them something to do. And the transition from content to sale is really simple, in the sense that you want to have a kind of a pivot point. So, and you do this in your consultations as well. Once you've finished your content, right, if you enjoy that, if that resonates with you, if that makes sense, then this is what I want you to do next. Visit the website, call the clinic, make an appointment, buy the book, take me out for coffee, whatever that call to action happens to be. That's where you want to put your energy. Okay, so I hope that is really crystal clear. Call to action. Everything you do should have a name, know what you're trying to do, why you're trying to do it, and then have that call to action to go with it. All right, that's a very long-winded way of answering that question, but hopefully you got some value from that one. And yes, keep it really bold and sparse. Absolutely, very clear. Add as much as you possibly can. All right. The next question, how do you decide on the cost of each signature program? From the anatomy of a consult video that we did earlier, it sounds like you don't have a set program cost. It's built individually for each client. But if you don't fill in a spreadsheet in front of a client, then what do you do? Oh, look, it's a really good question. It's something that we're going to cover in more detail, probably in a live event as we move forward, as you start to actually build out your signature program. There are two ways to do it. One is to have a fixed cost, okay, with everything attached. So if it was a program that included a lot of group content, or some webinars, or some online material, or something really specific, then you can give it a really defined price point, okay? And how you come up with that price really is up to you. So I'm putting together an online fertility program at the moment, which incidentally I'd love you to all be affiliates for, but I'm thinking about the price point. How much is this product going to be on the market for? What's included? What's in it? What does it look like? And then what kind of a funnel am I going to put in place to actually sell the program? And that price point comes down to you. The price point we're going to use for this one is $297, okay? But it could equally be a component of that for $27, or it might upsell or upscale into a package that costs, consulting package or a treatment program that costs $2,000 or $3,000. So that price point really depends on what value you're imagining you're going to be able to deliver. And I think if everything is very fixed, if you know how many consults and what product, and then you can and you list a table of inclusions and bonuses and add-ons, then you can build out a price very specifically. The challenge with creating a program for fertility, or for gynecology, or for pain relief, or something else, is that program isn't necessarily going to be exactly the same for every person. In fact, I think having some degree of tailorability is powerful. So because people don't, particularly in the health space, people don't want to feel like they're getting an off-the-shelf product. If they're sitting over from me, they want to feel like they're getting something that is built for them. And the reality is this program is built for them, and that has a certain power and credibility in itself. So, I think the answer is a bit long-winded, but the first part is, if you've got a program which is fixed, has lots of group content, is scalable, then have a fixed price. If it's something that is going to need to be tailored to some degree, remembering that tailoring process is actually really important as part of your sales process, then I would have a more flexible way of looking at it. But I can tell you, with even having said that, the bulk of our patients who are going through a fertility program, for example, their program is going to look very similar in terms of number of appointments, product, sessions, counseling, whatever it is. So I've got a really clear idea of how that's going to look before they actually begin. So it certainly is tailored, but there's going to be similarity across the board. Okay. Good oolong tea. It's good. All right. Next question. Someone sent in a few images to have a look at, and marketing images and marketing messages from Sylvie. And I like the imagery, but I think that some of it's getting a little bit it's lacking clarity to me. Okay. In fact, it's worth mentioning this now. I kind of, when you're thinking about a business name, when you're thinking about the kind of the language you're going to use in your marketing message for your particular niche, when you're thinking about signage, when you're thinking about the text for an advertisement, when you think whether it's a Facebook ad or a printed ad, where you're thinking about the audio for a radio ad, it's really tempting to try and write the advertisement for ourselves, and unless you are absolutely your target audience, it's just not going to work, okay? Because you're not going to be talking to the right person. So I think most of us name our, for example, name our practices because it sounds cool to us, okay? Or we use our marketing messages because it makes sense to us. Now we've got to remember that we want to use language that makes sense to the person buying. Use the language that they would use. So when it comes to fertility, we're very careful not to use the word infertility because I think it's way negative. And we use language more like, having a baby, starting a family, having number two, can't fall pregnant, because this is the sort of language that makes sense to our particular audience. So when you're coming up with marketing materials, you want to be able to do the same thing. So here's an example of a card, and it's not bad. It starts with a question: feeling run down, your time is precious, you want convenience. Well, straight away, you want convenience. That's not clear to me. Okay, so it's worth having a think about that message in itself. What does that mean, and could you say it better? You definitely could, because it's just not clear. I know what you're getting at, but it's not clear. Your time is precious, feeling run down. It's good to ask a question, but I think I would ask a much more specific question. Okay, so have a think about how can you say that in a short sentence with a big question mark on the end of it. The next line she's got is executive acupuncture home visits in Sydney. Well, that's telling me what you do, but it's not giving me a really good reason to take the first step. And this looks like it could be a postcard, or it could be a business card, or a car sign. It's not giving me any call to action at all. And then it's just got a web address, a phone number, and an email. Again, you've got to work out how important are those things. So, feeling run down, your time is precious, you want convenience. A question might be something more like, if you struggling with your health, but don't have the time to make an appointment? Question mark. I'll come. And then tell them what you're going to do. Well, I'll answer that question. Well, I'll come to you. I'll bring my practice to you to solve your issues around, I don't know, fatigue, stress. Okay. And to do that, visit blah, blah. All right. So I hope that makes sense. Good to have a question, but you really need a much stronger call to action and make it much clearer. The photos, these images, by the way, are on Basecamp, so you can have a look when you're going through this video as a recording. You can go back and have a look and see what I'm talking about. In fact, I may be able to share my screen. Let me see if I can do that. Screen share. Screen. We'll give this a crack. There we go. I think that's working. Hopefully you can see this here. I'll go back to the other one just real quick. So you can see the questions, and you can see executive acupuncture home visits, but there's no call to action. There's too much information. Not sure what this camera means. Are you going to take a picture of me? Do I take a picture of you? I don't know. I do like your logo though. That's pretty cool. Good picture. Executive acupuncture Sydney home visits. Again, I think with something like this, I would do the same thing. Call to, what's happening? What's the question? What's the solution? Where's the call to action? At this point, we're not that interested in who you are, although I like you to have your image there. That's good. Same message. Contact, you've got a call to action, but it's not clear. So I think all of that is kind of, some of these look really nice. I like this, but your message is not as clear as it perhaps could be. So I think the main sort of takeaway from that is I hope that worked, by the way. the main takeaway from that is to be much, much clearer in your message. And again, I don't think it's important whether it's a car magnet, a TV commercial, a radio ad, a print ad, a Facebook ad. You've got to work out what's your aim. What do you want someone to do with this information? And who is it you're talking to? Who's your target market? How do you phrase your question in a way that is going to appeal to that particular person that you want to be in front of? If you can do that, then it starts to make sense. 99% of businesses don't have a clue about marketing, and put a message out there, or put an image out there, or create a business card that really doesn't serve any real purpose. You've got to think, why am I doing this? Why am I going to spend money on printing? I want to make sure that I can do something with this particular card. Ask a question, provide a solution, and give them a reason to do it, and then tell them exactly how to go about doing it. Yeah, visit, click, phone, read, watch, whatever it is, make sure that they can do it. All right. Great questions, by the way. One more question here in terms of addressing objections that clients have to offering treatments in this model, especially when it's the first conversation you're having with them on the phone. That phone conversation is, let me answer it in a couple of parts. The phone conversation is just the starting point of that conversation. Okay, it's really important that you're answering the phone with your receptionist is answering the phone, that they begin that conversation in the right way. Okay, and it's really just a matter of, well, you know, what is the thing you need to know? Why are you calling? What is your burning question? Here is my suggested solution for that in very, very general sense. And here's what to do next. So for example, I'll give you an example. Someone rings up and they're inquiring about fertility. Surprise, surprise, that's my niche. Works really well. And I would say to that person, look, tell me a little bit about what you're going through. Okay, so I start that conversation. And they will then tell you a bit about what their journey's been, what processes they've been through, and you just need to get a little bit of enough information to be able to start that conversation. And then you'd say, okay, given what you've told me, you know, I think that we can help, and we can help in this way. And the first step is to come in for an initial appointment where we will, you know, develop a treatment, you know, a plan that is going to address your key issues and try and get some clarity around the way forward. Does that sound reasonable? So you get a micro commitment at that point. Yes, terrific. All right, let's make that appointment. So I think, you know, that's how you frame that conversation. Now, in terms of objections, post me your clear objections that you want answered, because there are lots of objections you can have. I find that there are much fewer objections when you don't try and sell something. Okay, so I haven't put a price on it. I haven't said, look, you've got to come in. I haven't been needy. All I've done is had a conversation. Tell me about your journey so far. Or someone rings up with pain. Okay, well, how that painful? That sounds terrible. What have you tried so far? What's worked? What hasn't? Okay, well, you know, my suggestion is that we do this thing. All right, and you don't go and explain the whole thing. You don't tell them you've got multiple pricing structures and you're going to use these products. You're just giving them a very general overview. Well, in my experience, you know, when we treat pain, this is the sort of result or outcome that I would expect. Does that sound reasonable? Yes, micro commitment. Awesome. Well, you know, given that, the best thing to do is get you in for that first appointment. Then we can discuss how we move forward from there. Okay. And if you do it in that way, your objections will be much fewer and far between, because all you're doing is you're creating conversation. Someone's made the effort to call you, so it gives you an opportunity to engage them in conversation. And the interesting thing is, if you go back, and I keep saying this, but if you go back to the anatomy of a consultation video, if you take these steps in the consultation itself, then you're going to have much fewer objections anyway, because what you've done is you've answered their key questions. And remember, it comes down to three things. Where did you come from? Yeah, which is about collecting history, a relevant history. Where are you now, which is about developing a diagnosis from a Chinese medicine or your perspective, or whatever perspective you want to introduce it as. And then the third part, and perhaps the most important part to the patient, is where are you headed, okay, which is about developing a really clear and concise treatment plan, okay, in brackets, signature protocol, treatment plan that covers off what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, when you're going to do it, who's going to do it, how much it costs, how we're going to measure it, what the outcomes are likely to be, and then how to get it, okay, how to pay for it. And if you take them through that journey, through that process, there are going to be much fewer objections because you're going to answer most of them along the way anyway. And when we're dealing with objections, because you will have them on price and other things, the clearer you explain things, the more honest and open and transparent you are about the process and the way that you work, the less objections you're going to have naturally as a matter of course, okay? And that's really important. If you haven't tried this, if you haven't watched the video, if you haven't got your script done, go on rewatch that video, because I've given you my exact script as part of that anatomy of a consultation, okay? And I know with great experience and great confidence that that particular script works brilliantly well in reducing the amount of objections you're going to have. So that script, when I do it, converts at over 90%. Okay, so if I said to you, these are the words you're going to say to a patient in order to convert them into a program, and it does it reliably at 90%, would you do it? Would you go and write that down and learn it word for word? Well, the answer should be yes. And if you haven't done it already, go and do it, because you don't even need a signature protocol to start using that anatomy of a consult. It's really, really step-by-step basic stuff, and you ought to be doing it. Okay. Just got a mouthful of oolong tea leaves in my mouth. So I hope that answers those questions for you. The way that you structure yourself is really important. And one of the things that I'm noticing really with everybody on the team is not always having clarity around the thing that you do. And if you don't have clarity around the thing that you do and the thing that you offer, it's very hard then to get your message correct or accurate or concise, okay? It gets a bit fumbly and a bit muddled and a bit fluffy and a bit airy when we really want to be very much to the point. So if I'm talking to someone with chronic shoulder pain or frozen shoulder, then my message needs to be very specific to that particular person. You know, for example, are you suffering from chronic shoulder pain? And have you tried? Do you feel like you've tried everything and still got the shoulder pain? Big question mark. Okay, so it's really talking to a very specific audience, and then you provide a solution. Well, you know what? Visit the website and download your free case study on how I helped the patient remove their shoulder pain that they'd had for 10 years in 6 weeks. You know, something really straightforward, but it's really, really clear. So if that's a very specific niche. It could be about pain, it could be more general than that. It could be about pain. So I know some of our members are in the pain market. So you might say, you know, have you been struggling with chronic pain and don't know where to turn next? Question mark. Visit, you know, clinic.com.au to download a case study that shows how I and then provide a very specific solution and example in that. And that's a really powerful way of going about making that that message very, very clear, very, very specific, even though it's talking to a paying audience. Okay, so another example might be to do with grief. For example, I know one of our members works in the area of grief, and it might be, your elevator pitch is to do with, are you struggling emotionally with loss, of a loved one? Have you considered this call to action? Do this in order to get your whatever. Okay, so it's very, very clear. I can't stress enough how important that clarity is around your message. So if you haven't got your elevator pitch absolutely nailed, sorted, stuck on the wall, and understood by you, then that's really your first step, because you can't open a conversation if you're not well versed in what that conversation is going to be about. It kind of makes sense. It sounds a bit silly when we put it that way, but it's really true. All right. So what I've done is we've answered those questions. What I want to do now is, we've got a little bit of time left, is to think about running a quick 1 week campaign by email for your existing patients. Okay, so it's a really quick reactivation campaign, and we had a lot of success when we did this as and we've talked about this briefly in the past, but what I'd really love you to do, if you haven't already, is to actually put this into place and do it this week if you can. What you want to do is you want to start with something like a gratitude or a thank you campaign. Okay, and an email promotion like this typically runs over 4 consecutive days. Okay, and the message in each email is the same, or the aim is the same, but the content is quite different. So, for example, if we were going to build this campaign out, on day one, I would send an email, and the subject line would be something like, first name ... thank you so much. Okay. Headline might be, I had a patient come to the clinic recently, and they over the moon with joy at the results they'd achieved. Okay, so we're reinforcing that positive message, and it got me thinking, how could I, repay your loyalty to the clinic? And that's why we decided to run this promotion. So you want to be really clear that it is a promotion, that you are going to be selling something, but give them a really good set of reasons to do it, saying thank you. Okay, and it's a really nice campaign to run, because it's real. I feel good when I get the opportunity to help my patients, and I'm sure you do too. Okay, so you want to think about stacking this campaign over that 4-day period, and it's 4 consecutive days in a week. Probably start on a Monday, run it to the Thursday, leave Friday to do any mop up with sales. So the first one is about thank you very much. Really appreciate you being a member of our clinic family. And for that, I've decided to give you this thing. Now, how you structure your offer will determine how many people take it up to a large degree. So if you offer a 5 or a 10% discount, look, it's probably not strong enough to get people, really jumping at the idea. If you want people to jump, if you want people to be excited, then you've got to give them a reason to be excited. So the campaign we're running at the moment has a number of things. The core part of the promotion is a book of 10 consultations, okay, at half price. So if it's normally about $1,500, then we're selling it for half of that. Okay, actually it's less than that. I think it's about $1,000, and then we're selling it for $500. Okay, but then what we've done is we've stacked that with a number of bonuses, which increases the value. So, for example, part 1, book of 10 for $500. Okay, so for you can lock in appointments, you can lock in some cash flow up front. You can give yourself a bit of a boost, and you can put some appointments in the diary down the track. Great thing to do. Okay. The second, and what we did with that is we say, look, those appointments don't have a time limit. You can use them whenever you like. Okay. The first bonus that came with that is a a first responders bonus. So the first 10 people who buy this pack will receive a further 2 consultations for free. Okay, so that, and each one's $97, so there's a couple of $100 extra value, and that's added on to the value. So if it was $1,000, now it's $1,200. Okay, bonus 2. I've included 2 free initial consultations valued at $250 in order for you to gift those to a friend or a colleague or a family member or someone who you think would benefit from spending a little bit of time working on their health. Okay, it's got a lot of value and I really want you to use it. Okay, but there's a catch. Because it's high value, we're going to put a time constraint on it, because what we really want them to do is actually use it. I want them to give those two tickets to somebody and I want them to come in. Okay, so we're going to time limit that to if I'm sending it out now, I'm going to time limit it to the end of the year. Okay, and that gives them a time frame to work with. It will expire at this point. Get in quick and use it. And then the last bonus we've done, and this is a new one we're doing for this particular campaign, is actually to offer a prize. So everyone who buys a ticket will go in the draw to win a prize. And the prize, got to think, well, what's a really good prize? People have iPads and phones and holidays and cars, and I can't afford to buy all those things necessarily for people. But what's something that has enormous value for us? It's just time. If you can spend time one-on-one with someone, you're going to get, potentially a greater result. So the special prize, the carrot that's going to get people to come in and purchase is go in the draw to win a half-day one-on-one with me, mini retreat here in Canberra. And we can, spend time going through your history and creating a plan and doing some treatment and talking about diet, and do that in a block of time where we don't ordinarily get the time or the opportunity or the chance to do that. And I think that's a very powerful tool. And the feedback so far has been that is actually a good incentive. People want that prize and they're keen to win it. So what we've done is we've stacked a number of bonuses. So now, we're selling a product at $500, which superficially is a lot of money, but it's got massive value. It's got $1,000 worth of consults. Actually, it's got $1,200 worth of consults, $500 worth of free initials. That's $1,700, plus the potential half day, which is probably valued at a few $1,000s ultimately. So it's packed with value, and it's a really good way of encouraging people to jump on board. Okay, and it's really important from an AHPRA perspective that if you can make an offer. There's no problem offering something like this. What you do need to do is be very clear about the terms and conditions. So at the bottom, I would have something that says fine print, you can buy as many blocks of 10 as you like, 1 entry to the competition per block of 10. There's a time frame on this component. So do you know what I mean? You've got to be very, very clear to AHPRA and the buyer about what's involved. Okay, and that's really day one. Engage them, and you will almost always get a couple of sales on that first day. What I suggest you do at the end of that email is say, and tomorrow, in fact, this is what I did. This was a bit tricky. I didn't tell them about that prize draw in that email. What I did do was allude to it. So I said, P.S. Tomorrow I'm going to tell you about a very special prize, something I've never done before. Okay, so the focus of the second email was all about spending that half-day one-on-one with me and why that is so valuable. Okay, so what we're doing is we're stacking day after day, creating more and more value, re-engaging with our audience, and getting them to ultimately take action. And you'll find if you do it in this way, come day 3, day 4, you will be making sales, and it's a really good way to do it. Now, the interesting thing is, you're a clinical practice, you are a business. Not everybody is going to love that you're trying to sell them something. Okay, that's the nature of things. But if you do it in a way that is open and honest and from a genuine place of care, then the vast majority of people will appreciate that you're taking the time to make such a good offer to them. And we have repeat customers and repeat buyers because of this very approach. And it's something you can do very simply. So day one, thank you, and say, hey, this is what I'm going to send you tomorrow. Day two, you give them the information you're going to send them. Then you want to see day three. What are we going to talk about on day three? And again, day three, you see day four. Day four is the close. Yeah? If this is, if this is right for you, if this resonates for you, if you want it, you know what, you got to take action. And the action is, and this is really important, CTA, call to action. The action to take is call the clinic, speak to whoever, in our case, Megan, tell her how many books of 10, put your name in the drawer to win the prize, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Okay, so one, it's stacked. One leads to the next, leads to the next. It's a really great campaign to run. So what I'd love you to do, the challenge for this week, given that we're all going to be in Byron this weekend, which is exciting, but the challenge I want to set for you is, can you set up and run this campaign for next week, starting on Monday, running for 4 days, and what kind of sales can you put through your practice in that week? Perhaps I'll think of a good prize for the winner. So I suggest you get on and do it. And it's a really powerful little engagement series to put some money through the practice, and also practice your copywriting skills. All right. So let's just have a quick look, make sure there's nothing here. There's one question come through. The case study you're talking about, is it legal through AHPRA? Yeah, absolutely. All you're doing is, you're not giving a test. You can't do a testimonial. So I couldn't say, here is what Jack and Jill said about my treatment. But certainly I can say case study, and this is something we're about to run with, case study. And it says something like, how answering this one question took a couple, or helped or enabled a couple to fall pregnant when they were told it would never happen naturally. Okay, so it's a case study. It's really just talking about a general example to make a point. We're not using any testimonial. So yes, absolutely, in my opinion. Again, remember, I'm no lawyer. I'm a business owner like you and a marketer like you. But my interpretation is, yes, you can certainly run it as a case study. All right. Well, I think I'm pretty much done for today. It's been a really enjoyable call. Thank you for sending in your questions. I do appreciate that. Remember, the best way to get out of this program is to engage with the content, with these coaching calls, with the content you're getting through the Health Leaders Academy site, and obviously live. And I'm traveling to Byron on Friday morning. I can't wait to see you all there. I look forward to being part of the group as a student and as a coach, and hopefully the weather is better in Byron than it is in Canberra at the moment. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you next month. Bye for now.